Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, welcome to the Eagle Talk Show. Bienvenido al Show de las Águilas. And now, please stand and welcome your host, Mycah Arellano.
Bienvenido a Austin. Welcome to the Eagle Talk Show, the new season to empower and to give inspiration to parents. Bienvenidos al Show de las Águilas. My God, this show is going to focus on reach one and teach one. Es apoyar a una persona y ayudarlo con educación. It's phenomenal to be here this new season because we're going to really empower you parents to inspire your child's dream. Vamos a dar a ustedes el apoyo para que usted dé el esfuerzo al sueño de sus hijos. But you know this show starts with a little entertainment. So Mr. DJ, can you hear me? We need to dance. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. Here we go. Yes. Have a seat. Oh my God. Manny, God, was the vision, right? When you really put into that, Manny.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff you're going to share with us to motivate and empower our parents to get involved in that child's education.
Yeah.
Lo va a platicar con nosotros para que le dé el apoyo a nuestras familias, nuestros padres, para la educación de sus hijos. But let me share, 3 years ago, you and I met in it was a seminar, and I saw you. And I said to you, you were going to be in our show. And that show was just planning. And you said, what? And you visualized, and here you go, right?
That's
It's
right.
like,
I remember that.
that's very true.
I remember
3
that.
años pasados lo conocí en una conferencia a Manuel. Y le dije yo, tú vas a estar un día parte del distrito escolar de dependencia de Austin, en un show que estamos apenas comenzando. Y aquí estamos, ¿verdad? Manny, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Platícanos, talk about what got you to this change in your life. What motivated you to inspire people the value of education?
The value of education. Well, first, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's so good to be here. I remember that day in that conference room. He said, I'm gonna have this talk show and I want you on it. I'm like, okay, whatever you say, man, I will be there. And that was 3 years ago. And so dreams do come true. And I'm so proud of you, man, and I'm honored to be here. Now, it's good to be back. Little background. My family's from this area. My great-grandparents are from San Antonio. My grandmother, my mother, my grandfather's name was Valentin Guevara.
So you're part of Tejano.
Yeah. I'm named after my great-grandfather and my stepfather. So my birth name was Manuel Valentin Sarmiento. Don't let the brown skin fool you.
Que la piel es otra cosa. Pero ya entendieron, padres, que tiene su raíz ser latino.
Yeah, so my blood is rich with Mexican culture, African American culture, and I have my grandmother married a man named Chester Scales from Galveston, Texas, a white man, and so Mexican, black, white. So I like chicken and chorizo and pork loin.
My grandma used to say this. Mijo, don't worry, somos una tole.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is.
It's just what it is.
That's what it is.
So, I like Kool-Aid, agua fresa, and water,
Yeah.
I like Tupac and Vicente, my grandma used to make homemade flour tortillas early in the morning. And when she passed away, no one in the family knew how to make grandma's tortillas. So I have to come back to Texas and eat at the restaurants here just to eat grandma's tortillas. So it's good to be back. Come from a beautiful family. But a family that had a lot of challenges.
Share with us.
Father's been in prison almost my whole life. I've seen him 11 times for a total of 15 hours. My stepfather was a hardworking man, good man, but he was an alcoholic and sometimes addicted to drugs. And so there were many nights when he got drunk or high, he used to become possessed by something or someone who terrorized my family. And so I'll never forget the night I heard my mom screaming for help, screaming my name, baby, help me, help me. And I stuck my head out into the hallway to see what was wrong with Mama. And my stepfather grabbed Mama by the back of her head and he slammed her face through a glass window. and a piece of glass broke off and opened Mama. And as a little boy, I had to fight for my mother's life and defend my mother and protect my mother. And time again, I lost. I lived in 26 places before I was 16. Apartment buildings, not including homeless shelters, beaches, cars, strangers' houses. And I used to take all those issues with me to school. And I'd be sitting in class, unable to focus. People would make fun of my hair, my clothes, my shoes. Teachers would single me out, and I'd become very self-conscious. So I started hating myself, hating school, and so I started ditching school. Yeah. From 4th to 9th grade, I ditched school 60 to 90 days every year. And I found a family in the streets of, all of them were high school dropouts, not bad people, they were just lost. They protected me, taught me how to survive. My grades dropped. Yeah. First semester of my freshman year, I earned a 0.6 GPA. 3 Fs, 3 Ds, and a C. I got a D in gym. Second semester, I dropped out of school because in addition to the little bit I shared with you, my best friend was killed on his way to my house.
Was that a awakening call for you, something to move with the...
Oh, yeah.
I think that the inner end, the soul, we call it, something just wakes that.
That, losing Alex, he used to let me borrow his clothes and his shoes. Good guy. He and his family immigrated to this country, and when he was killed, part of me died with him. And that's when I hit rock bottom. That's when I gave up and said, look, man, whether you're black or white or Mexican or Asian, and you live in my hood, something is set up for people like us to fail. Dropped out of school, smoking weed, getting drunk, broke into my first house, stole my first car, got my first tattoo when I was drunk and high from a guy named Big Richard, who's now in prison serving 99 years for murder. Dropped out of school, gave up, but a complete stranger named Martin Stokes, who was facing his own challenges, was addicted to drugs, sat down next to me on a park bench and helped me see that my story didn't have to be over. Helped me believe that my future could be better than my past. And he pushed me. He said, man, go to school, go to church. These streets ain't for you. They're gonna get you hurt. They're gonna get you killed. So the short of it is I went back to school, got 5 A's and 2 B's, and was surrounded by a community of people who really helped me. Martin Stokes, there was this pastor named Richard Padilla, who taught me about unconditional love. Yeah. There was this teacher named Erin Gruelle, Freedom Rider teacher. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, pushed me to go to college. Security guards, boy, pull up your pants. There were librarians who gave me just time and patience, nurses. And there's a little lunch lady. Her name was Rodu from Greece, barely spoke English. I was having a rough day, and this woman, she just, lunch lady, little lunch lady, she said, come here. And I leaned. She grabbed my face. She said, you're going to be great. I see it in your eyes.
You know, and going back to that, you think things happen for coincidence, or is because something moves that?
Oh, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in providence. I believe things are divinely designed. And I was allowed to be in places at the right time, and I was surrounded by people who, with hearts filled with love and souls generated by grace, left their comfort zone to help a stranger. And so they pushed me. They helped me become the first person in my family to graduate from high school. Went to UC Berkeley, graduated with 2 degrees, went to graduate school, got a master's degree. I'm working on a PhD now to become Dr. Scott.
Everything is possible in life.
It's possible.
Todo es imposible.
Yeah.
And you share with us the story because right now, our viewers right now, they're impacted somehow through your story, through our stories that we share. Because I believe no coincidence. I believe it just connects. Divine puts interventions permitting to inspire. Inspire me to inspire people to come and get engaged with their child's dream. Through you, we filter that information to our community.
Yes.
One of the things that I want to share with you, share with us how it's so key for parents to value parental involvement in schools.
Oh, it's indispensable. It's an inescapable must. I tell parents, look, provide a healthy home, care about their schooling, partner with their teachers, and keep showing up. The first, I think, most important part of involvement as a parent is making sure the home environment is healthy and safe. No drugs, no excessive alcohol, no verbal, physical abuse. It's a loving place where these young people can be cultivated. They can learn about delayed gratification and hard work and sacrifice. Learn about conflict management, how to handle disagreements without your fists, things like that. Because kids learn how to fight from their parents. So, healthy home. Number two, care about their education. How was school today? And read to your kids. Read to your kids.
And studies show you read 30 minutes to your child. It's impactful.
Man, I have a 7, 5, and a 4-year-old little girl. I brought her a toy home the other day. It was for a boy. I didn't have a lot of time, so I just grabbed all these toys. And I grabbed these, and I handed it to her, and she said, "I'm disappointed." I was impressed that she knew the word disappointed. We read to them. We've been reading to them since they were in my wife's womb. Yeah. We were playing this game, teaching them about wealth. Yeah. And I did this thing during the game, and my daughter said, "Dad, don't do that." She's 4 years old. "Don't do that again because you're going to get more liabilities."
What do you mean?
What's that? No.
The words.
The words. Education. If you can empower a young person to read, they can free themselves to learn anything else they need to learn. So care about their education. Partner with the teachers. Teachers are friends, not enemies. Yeah. I tell parents, realize someone else might be able to take your child further than you can academically. They're not better than you. They're not taking your place. They're there to help. They were trained. And I find a lot of parents who had a bad experience in school, they try to avoid going down to the school. Or maybe they didn't go to college and they're intimidated and nervous. These teachers are there to help. And it's good to build relationships with them early before there's a problem. You know, it's frustrating as a parent to get a call 4 months in about how bad your kid is. If you have a relationship, it's a different relationship.
I think it's building capacity. And that capacity is relationships.
Yes.
And I was talking earlier to one of our school board members. This is very supportive of the show. And here join us today with the show. It's building capacity relationships. And the relationship is not to blame anybody. It's to find a solution, whatever that is.
Very good.
And I believe that the education starts a foundation at home. And when home has challenges, then the resources from the schools, from the community's partnership, we're trying to strengthen that individual family, one family in a village at a time.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, sharing with us that story, because I know that story is impacting somebody that says, well, I walked that journey, well, I'm walking that journey.
Yes.
And to educate our community and the parents that you're not alone.
No.
Our district is learning every day to continue building relationships. Let me go back to this.
Yes.
And I have a question for you. Truancy is a huge issue when students face. My God, you know that. Relate from your own personal experience, Manny. Some ideas, how can we improve parental support in this area?
Well, I told you I missed 60 to 90 days every year from 4th to 9th grade. So I knew truancy officers by name. I mean, I would run. They would chase me. I would be spending days. So I got really good at hiding and ditching school. I hated school. Manny Scott, why did you hate school? Well, because I was in environments where some of the teachers, I believe poverty is not just the lack of money. Poverty is the lack of access to the kinds of people who can help you make something out of your life. And in many of my environments, I was very poor in that sense of the word. I had teachers embarrass me in front of the class. You know, what do you think the answer is? I don't know. You didn't do your homework last night? I tried, I didn't understand it. No one at home could help you with your homework? I'm like, well, they didn't understand it either. Right. Stand up. Why do your clothes look like that? Like, I got holes in my pants, holes in my shoes. You don't have a washing machine at home? I started linking more pain to being at school and more pleasure to being outside of school. And if you want to keep kids from dropping out, from being truant, we have to reverse that. They have to link more pleasure to being in the classroom and more pain to the choices they're making in
And
the
you
streets.
can relay that. Most of us,
Yes.
as I have the host of the show, but I also have my job with the parent support specialist in the school district. And so
Yes.
we build relationships in the community. We know, identify of those challenges that the families have. And when the teachers don't, it's not that they don't make time, it's just they're not aware. And when we,
Yes.
part of building a relationship is reaching to the community. And you
Yes.
see the whole
Yes.
the whole concept of that child's environment and understand what are the challenges, I call them challenges of that child. When we can to be aware and have the awareness of what those challenges, that we can really start building those communications with our parents, because I believe
Yes.
that every child in this planet has a dream. And it's our duty, Manny, as leaders to empower that dream
Yes.
through whatever resources that we might have. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. I believe that, and I tell people I don't believe most people are lazy. I just believe they have impotent goals.
Yeah.
There's nothing that wakes them up in the morning, that fires them up. So on a park bench, a complete stranger sat down next to me and helped me see a future for myself that I didn't see for myself. I had a teacher who said, "Manny, you should go to college." I'm not college material. What do you mean you're not college material? She took me to college campuses, and I was intimidated, like I don't belong here. And there was a guy sitting across the table from me, all these college students, and I was intimidated. I'm like, man, I don't. But there was this guy sitting across the table from me talking. He was a college student, and he didn't sound that smart. And I thank God for that guy. Because I
Everything
said to
aligns
myself,
in earth for some reason, divine, everything.
I said, if he's in college, maybe I could go to college too. And so absolutely, man, like it's indispensable. You know, I believe exposure is the birthplace of big dreams and motivation.
Well, let me just share with you, and we can relate this. I was born in a barrio, very, people tell us my mom raised 5 kids. We have gone to our own path of careers and our journeys. But one thing my mom said, this is temporary living. The key for success or leaving this barrio or the projects is an education, some kind of education.
Yeah.
And just my experience recently, and I share with you, meeting Oprah and having the opportunity, having the vision and interviewing, and we hope that she considers being in our show, or we go to her show someday.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
from a barrio boy that was told you cannot be better than anybody else. And to be in that experience, more inspirational. And she taught this, and Oprah, I know you're seeing this today. BAM, we're going with BAM everywhere.
Yes.
That anybody that gets in our way to empower a child, a family, is BAM. Getting rid of that negative energy. Because we need to get that. And we need to collect and be around people that inspire us, that empower us to that dream. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have a chance to go to the audience.
How would you reach out into the community and have parents kind of cheer each other on and say, yes, go be a part of your child's education?
What I'm finding today is a lot of parents are overworked, stressed out, don't have a lot of extra time, and the intimidation, sometimes the discomfort. But the districts that I've worked in where I see higher parental involvement, I'm seeing leaders who are really being proactive and consistent. Early in the year, I'm just trying to reach out. I'm sending words of encouragement home before I talk about problems. One example is I was speaking at a district in Chicago, and it was like a principal and maybe even the superintendent and a social worker. When I was done, this little guy was just hanging out. When I was done speaking, the little guy was just hanging out. And he reminded me of a younger version of myself. And I used to just hang out at school because I didn't want to go home. I said, man, can I give you a ride home? He said, sure. Drove him home, superintendent's following me, teachers following me, counselor, social workers following me. Get out of the car, and we're in the projects. We're in the projects. And I take the young man to his front door, and I think it's his counselor, walks with me. Mom opens the door, and I'm like, hello, ma'am, my name is Manny Scott. And she looks at the counselor, hey, how are you? Counselor had a box of food, and the mom was so grateful. There was a humility there and a gratitude there that she said, it's so good to see you. And apparently this counselor, this person at the school had been working with that mom for some time, letting her know, I really care. You're not a project to me. You're a person, and I care about your family. I care about the well-being of your son. I could never take your place. I'm just here to help. Now, you change that situation and you find just a random person going up to someone in the hood, giving them a box of food, you're going to cause some problems because that's offensive. How do you just drop? So this woman had been consistently working with this parent. I don't think there's a silver bullet, but I do think to build the relationship, openness, acceptance, trust, learning, understanding, and serving. I believe it's in that order. Openness, acceptance, trust, learning, understanding, and serving. I believe if you try to serve someone you don't understand, you can become a benevolent oppressor. You can try to slap solutions on something and you don't even understand the problem. So that's why you're saying talking to, getting to know, getting an understanding of who is this family, what are they about, how can I help them in terms that they can respect and receive. That's been huge. I was a project for most of my life. You don't study hard enough. You know what your problem is, you got a bad attitude. But they never took the time to learn that I haven't been eating in 3 days, that my mom was raped last night, that my brothers just got locked up. No one took the time to really understand why I was a problem. So as an adult, taking time to really just keep working. You're not going to reach everyone, but you're going to reach someone because on your worst day, you might be their best hope. Now,
You go back.
Yes.
The people that are not in that awareness,
Yes.
they see it as a problem, but we see it as a need that needs to be implemented. So going back to the educators, really educating, providing resources for the educators, say, this is what we're doing in our population. Because we have different schools in different areas and different populations, different needs. But I believe this, if everybody goes to do a community walk, I mean, go to the neighbor as school starts, I'm teacher so-and-so, reaching to that community, building that foundation of relationships. And I think that's what we need to focus in every school district. That we need to do community walks for administrators before school starts. And say, my name is so-and-so, and welcome.
I love it.
And I want to hear this. Welcome to Austin Independent School District this year. I want to hear that. Because we can build that capacity in the relationships. So when we have those interventions, we become not that it's a problem, but there's a need in our community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so the kind of fruit from this kind of work, and you have wonderful leaders in this district, Dr. Cruz, Dr. Mary Thomas. I've been in Austin.
And wonderful board members that are here.
Board members. Do we have some board members? Very nice. So thank you. I mean, I've been to Austin several times, maybe, I don't know, a month or 2 months. In the last two years, I've just been here working in all of the schools, many of the schools, working in the jails, and seeing some wonderful things happen. But just one example, I was speaking, and after I was done, a young man walked up to me. He had tattoos on his neck, teardrop, bandana hanging out of his pocket, a Mexican guy. He was hard, and he said, he just walked up to me. He handed me this drawing and just walked away. And I'm looking at this picture. It was a picture of a hand holding up a candle, and there was a handcuff around the wrist. And I was baffled by it. I said, hey man, hey dog, come back. And he came back. I said, you drew this? He said, yeah. I said, what do you want to be? He said, I said, well, what does this mean? He dropped his head. And I can tell he was thinking about something. He was debating on whether or not he was going to tell me. And he looked up at me. He said, Mr. Scott, he said, when I was little, my mama sold me to drug dealers. And they raped me. And they raped me. And they hurt me. And he said, and when they were done with me, they threw me in a dumpster to die. He said, but my brother found me, and his brother was along the wall crying. He said, that's all I got. That's all I got. And he snatched a picture from me. He said, this hand is my hand. He said, and this candle is my hope that my life can get better. He said, but that handcuff just reminds me that I ain't going to be nothing I ain't going to be nothing. People like me, I want to believe that my life can get better, but I ain't going to be nothing. Just be real with me, Mr. Scott. I ain't going to be nothing. Just be real with me. And I hugged him. And I squeezed him, and I just talked to him and tried to encourage him and let him know, man, it's not where you're from, but it's about where you're going. And I encouraged him, hugged him, prayed for him, and I had to leave. 1 year later, didn't forget about him. Went back to his hood looking for him. Found some guys who knew him. Said, hey, you. I said, man, y'all know where Paul is? They said, we know Paul, but who are you? I said, my name is Manny Scott, and I met him last year. They said, you Mr. Scott? I said, yeah, you heard about me? He said, y'all, this is Mr. Scott. He said, Mr. Scott, Paul ain't around here no more. He said, Paul used to say, Mr. Scott said this, and Mr. Scott said that, and Mr. Scott said this. He said, Mr. Scott, Paul started doing better in school. Our homie went to college, Mr. Scott. He said,
If that speaks the truth, and I'm going to make it short.
Yeah.
And I know our seconds are counting.
Yes.
But remember that it's building community and relationship.
Absolutely.
I want you all to give one applause to Manny Scott, Manuel Scott.
Thank you.
It gets better. It gets better. Hang in there. We're going to go into a brief message, a healthy minute from Sendero. We'll be right back. Stay tuned as we invite another guest, Roberto Rivera. It gets better.
It gets better.
Welcome to Healthy Minute, brought to you by Sendero. Today we'll talk about washing our hands and why is it important. A, stop the germs. B, stay healthy. C, we succeed in school. After all, we're the driver of our health. Hey guys, good to see you. Wait a minute. Are we forgetting something? We gotta wash our hands. Turn around.
Soap and water, soap and water, soap and water, soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and water. Toss it on, water flows. Get it nice and warm. Then grab that soap, lather up, scrub up to your arms. Count to 10, count again. Keep those bubbles showing. When you're done, rinse them off. Time to dry and go. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. Soap and water's gonna help you keep the germs away. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. Away, eh, 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 eh. Away, eh, eh, eh. Away, eh, eh.
Welcome to our next segment of Reaching One and Teach One. Es animar a una persona y educar a una persona. Cada una persona. Estamos aquí. Pero nuestro invitado que está aquí es Roberto Rivera. Viene de Chicago. También se crió aquí en los Estados Unidos, en Texas, ¿verdad? So we're inviting Robert Rivera. Welcome, Robert.
Thank
to
you.
the Eagle Talk Show.
Good to be here.
How you like this weather?
Man, this weather is amazing. And, I feel like so excited. You just met Oprah, so I feel like, this is preparation. Maybe.
I know, this season we're going to say, we said to Manny, the previous segment, bam. We're going to
Bam.
bam everything that is blocking us because we need to empower our kids, our family to focus in their dream and education.
That's right.
Let's
got to
hear
make
it.
an app for that.
We're going to do that. Robert, who gave you the inspiration to this journey that you're doing, impacting lives, and especially scholars, students?
Right. No, I mean, I've come to understand that, there's a few different tracks on this thing called life. If life is a train, there's a few different tracks we can go down. One is the track to destruction. And that's the track where you're promised to make a lot of money, to, get things very quickly, but it ends in a crash. And so for me, when people would ask, where are you from? I would always say, I'm from everywhere. My family being from Nicaragua, my father came here illegally and, got into, just this whole piece of drinking excessively, alcoholic, So I went to 13 different schools before high school. And, just several times, man, my dad would come home drunk and just start hitting me and my mom, And so I remember, in the middle of the night, my mom finding all the different bottles that my dad had around the house and putting them on the table and leaving a note saying, this is the last time we're out of here. And so, I think growing up, never sure how long I would be in a place, I had some pain from that. And I was always the cat, good at making a lot of friends, and acquaintances, but no one really knew me,
So did the school knew about what's going on at home?
Nah, I don't think the school knew what was going on. I mean, they saw me as the new kid. Early on, my father brought his sister and brother from Nicaragua up, and they didn't speak any English, so we're learning 2 languages, in the house. And I was quickly given the label of being learning disabled. So moving around, told that I was, special education. At a very young age, I got exposed to start, smoking weed, and, I started selling. I got kicked out of school. So for me, my grandfather was that Michelangelo. And I talked about this yesterday, that, Michelangelo had that vision where instead of just seeing a stone, he would build a relationship with the stone, and it would allow him to see the sculpture within the stone.
Right.
And so he says, he didn't create any sculptures, he just chips away at the rough pieces. So for me, my abuelito,
Right.
when I was 14, 15, getting kicked out of school and, arrested and all the humiliation that came from that, my grandfather's like, he was a community leader, and so he would take me to different meetings, and he'd say, this is my grandson. And I'm like, man, why is he introducing me like that, And I could just tell that he saw me in a different light. Yeah. He didn't see the stone, he saw the sculpture. And so even when I was 14, 15 years old, he's treating me as if I'm going to be on the Eagle Talk Show when I'm 15.
And here you are, brother.
Yeah.
Here you are. That inspiration.
That was a major
that
inspiration.
energy that aligns everything in this earth, in this planet. It's awakening. And we have to be aware. And to people when you build a relationship, people not understand, especially teachers. I know Manny talked about that in the last segment, is get to know that family, get to know that child, and then before you make an assumptions, get to know. And then you can build relationships with them.
Yeah, that's right. And so when I speak to young people, I don't come in as, the parent, and I'm not a youth anymore, although I feel young, I tell my wife, I feel like I'm 20. I'm just like, and I come in as the big brother. And so another major inspiration in my life was my little brother, Gabriel, a little boy who was born, when my mom was 43, he was born with Down syndrome. And my parents split when he was born. My dad wanted to move the whole family to Nicaragua after he got sobered up and everything like that. And, that was my little dude, man. We had brother day, and I'd take him, to Chuck E. Cheese and act the fool and be in the balls and getting stuck in the little tube. I shouldn't have been trying to crawl up in those tubes. But, and so my little brother and I, we had this very special relationship. And, kids with Down syndrome have a greater proclivity for a certain kind of leukemia. So he ended up, getting leukemia. And, here I am trying to be an inspiration to him. He's like, okay, man, he's going to be Special Olympics. He's, able to hoop and everything. And he ended up inspiring me, man. So I have this picture in my office of my little brother. He's connected to, this, I call it like the electronic octopus. He's got IVs and tubes and catheters, and he's letting off what I call a joy bomb in the hospital room, and I snapped this shot, and he's got all this stuff going on. So, after 2 years of battling cancer, he showed me that hope is best seen with the backdrop of hardship, that the most powerful thing in the world is love. And he had a gift, man. He would come into a room like this, and he could tell who was like, kind of in a funk, and he'd come up right to you and just give you a hug, And it was amazing. He'd get my Uncle Paul to dance, and Uncle Paul don't dance for nobody. You know what I'm saying?
The inspiration that we
Yeah.
all delivered. Share with us. Tell us, what does it mean to be a change agent?
Yeah, so kind of wrapping up the previous story and answering your question, you know, when my brother passed in my arms, you know, it was a transformational moment for me. You know, at the time I had graduated college, I had gotten a job, you know, I bought a house. My parents never owned any property. You know, I felt like I was living the good life. I just was missing the 2.5 children and the white picket fence. But when he died, man, I realized that even though I'd gotten off the track of destruction, I was on another track of distraction. And that there was a track that I was not on, which was the track of my dream. And I realized that, yeah, you know, even though I had come so far and gotten this job, that there was some greater purpose that I had. And, you know, I started trying to figure out, what do I do with this pain from losing my brother? And I came across this piece of ancient literature. It says that the Creator can take all things and work it out for good. And so, you know, I was like, okay, I'm not going to go back to smoking and drinking. That's how I dealt with my friends getting murdered and different things happening in the past. I'm not going back to that. I've come too far. So I said, well, what is that dream? So my wife at the time was taking a social entrepreneurship class. She's like, I got to write a business plan. I don't know what I'm going to write this about. I said, well, I think I got an idea. So I started sharing with her this idea of, you know, doing an educational company. We call it edutainment. You know, engaging young people in culturally relevant ways to empower them. And so she started writing this whole thing out, and, you know, we're making up different jobs, you know, the director of production and then the program director. Did I have money for this? No, you know. And so at my brother's funeral, I met a guy who, you know, had a bunch of different businesses, and he said, you know, I think we got to meet. There's something, you know, that I hear about your interest in education. We got to meet. So we ended up, you know, scheduling a time, and he was a real busy man. So we couldn't meet till April 12th. This was a couple months later. And he didn't know it, but I did. That was my brother's birthday. So I went to this man's office, and I just started sharing my heart with him. I'm just like, you know, I think that we can engage young people. We're asking the wrong questions. Instead of, you know, what's wrong with you, we need to ask what's right with you. Instead of asking, are you smart? We got to ask, how are you smart? And kids who are breakdancing and doing DJing and graffiti, that is their spark. That is their intelligence. We need to tap into that and then leverage that to help them excel academically. And he's like, oh, I'm liking what you're saying right here. Do you have anything right now?
No.
I reached in my bag.
Where's my wife?
I did a whole nother kind of band, man. I pulled it out. I was like,
I got the idea.
I tried not to, you know, smash his desk with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, here you go, sir. You know, and it was awkward because he read the plan for like 20, 30 minutes. He didn't even say anything to me. Put his reading glasses on. I'm just like looking at this man's big old office and stuff, you know. And he puts down his glasses. He said, I'm going to help you start this business, and we're going to do it to honor your brother.
That's amazing.
And when I left that man's office, man, it was April 12th, the spring day, and the wind hit my face. And not to be weird or anything, but I heard the voice of the Creator. And he said, I've just begun to start working out good from your brother's death. And what I began to realize is that I had a calling to be a big brother to a generation.
Yes.
To not just say, okay, get off the track of destruction,
Yeah.
but also get off the track of distraction. Because there's so many people who are so-called successful, but they have aborted a life where they could be significant and follow that dream.
And impact people's lives.
Yeah, so when it comes to being a change agent, it's really realizing that everything good that we have in our lives, everything bad in our lives,
Bam, bam.
is fuel.
Yeah.
And the pain can become propane to help us to get up the mountain of our dreams.
It's amazing. You talked about yesterday you were traveling in Austin schools. There are interesting schools to motivate those scholars and empower parents to follow that dream child. You were in this at Reagan High School, and you talked to the kids, say to your neighbor. What was that message?
Mm-hmm.
Share with us. You were motivating them. It's like,
Yeah.
turn around and say this to your neighbor.
I think in that particular piece, we kind of get in the flow, but I was quoting Howard Thurman. He says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs are people who have come alive. And I said, turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, do you know what makes you come alive? Neighbor, do you realize that that can change the world? And so,
You want to do that with the audience right now?
Yeah,
Real
let's do
quick?
it. So turn to your neighbor right
around
now.
to your neighbor.
Say, neighbor,
Neighbor,
do you know what makes you come alive? Do you know that that could change the world doing what you love to do?
that is so good. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And sometimes we're not aware for stuff that we get involved in our society and the personal stuff. And sometimes somebody needs to remind us of the awareness in that moment. How did you come with the name Hip Hope?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of our work, initially I was getting, asked to do trainings with teachers and, lecture at universities, in educational schools that were top in the nation. I had never had an education class in my life, but, we were doing stuff in the community. We started doing stuff in the school and started seeing all these results, GPAs going up a full point, attendance improving, behavior issues going down. So we were doing something that had this kind of, effective engagement strategy. And so as I began to kind of do research and reflect also on my life, I realized, man, if I could boil it down to one thing, it's hope, And
Esperanza.
Esperanza. And it's not this kind of, idea that things are going to change by themselves, or this idea that's a deficit view saying, we don't have anything to work with, we'll just wait for Superman to come save us.
We all assume that sometimes, somebody's
Right.
going to rescue us somehow.
But it's a hope that involves us being critical thinkers about what's going on in our realities. It's a hope that, necessitates us being creative and having a radical imagination about what is possible. It's a hope that says, we have something to work with. It might just be a couple of broken down turntables and some spray paint, but we can do something with what we have available. And so to try to coin that, I was like, it's not that young people don't have these things in their culture. It's already embedded in hip-hop culture, not to be confused with hip-hop industry.
Right.
So let's say, instead of bringing something to folks who are missing or lacking, let's cultivate something that's there. Let's do hip hope. You have something already in your life that's a spark. Let's fan it into a flame.
Yeah, let's make it entertaining and
Yeah.
motivational for people. We're gonna we have a couple of minutes. We're going to go to the audience.
How do you keep yourself motivated, and how do you keep yourself fighting for the good fight?
It's a good question. I think a lot of what inspires me is, like this morning, I just take time to, reflect on my journey. And I realized that, man, I'm here, I was given the opportunity to do a TED Talk in May, and that was a big dream of mine. And it was, with a lot of different speakers from around the nation. And I felt a little intimidated at first, But right before I went out on stage, I began to realize, everybody I grew up with is dead or in jail or addicted or strung out. But I'm here.
Yeah.
And I have a chance to be a voice, and I want to be a voice for the voiceless. So I came out like a lion out of a cage, man.
Where you're not, here we go.
Yeah, and so, we did this whole hip hop TED Talk, and it was awesome. I'll never forget. I could get Alzheimer's and schizophrenia and still not forget that moment. But I think a big piece of it too is just, this is a reciprocally transformative experience.
Right.
That, years later, I thought it was just me that was benefiting out of this relationship with my grandfather. But now, reflecting back, I realize I'm part of his legacy. Yeah. He's not here in the physical, but in the spiritual, his life, his example is still having an impact on the earth.
I think it's the seed is planted somehow at an
Yeah.
early stage for us, and it's up to us to be around those people, the influences, to empower that dream.
Right.
And just because you answer a question, ma'am, our lovely friend from Dell Children's Hospital has donated you a car seat. Just letting you know that. So there you go, right?
Yeah. And
Let me ask you something.
And it's interesting, just to wrap up the last point, is that I was at Reagan High School, and a young man, he came up to me after I spoke, and he just looked at me and just went like that. And he went like that, and I was like, okay. And I opened up my hand, and he gave me a seed. And I was like, and then he just ran off, and I couldn't, so many people, and I was like, okay, at least I know a seed was planted here, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so for me, it's, looking at the youth that I've built relationship with over the years and continue to be in communication with them. Some of them, have gone to college. Some of them have graduated college. Some of them are, working for the Good Life Alliance now. And, connecting with them. And, that's my fruit right there, And, I tell them, I'm like, you guys are going to be better than me. You're going to do the next TED Talk that's going to get millions of hits. And so that inspires me.
So what has taught you in your career about youth? And I know you just shared briefly. What has that career, that journey you're carrying on to, your inspiration, has taught you with the youth?
Yeah, so, I think that I've come to understand from my experience, from, my research, from my own journey, is that there's a special calling on young people. The Native Americans had this idea, a couple ideas that were pretty profound. One is the 7-generation idea, that they believe that all of their decisions that they make as tribal leaders should impact positively people for 7 generations, which is pretty profound. And so in some of those traditions, when the tribal leaders gathered together to make these decisions, they'd have children with them in these tents, in these meetings, as a reminder that this ain't about us. Right. This is about them. One of my mentors, Bill Ayers at UIC, he said, you can have a whole room full of CEOs and presidents, but if you have a kid or a teen in there, that teen and that kid has more power than anyone else, because they're a reminder that this is not about them, their political careers, their other agendas and motivations. And so I think that part of the gift of youth is holding adults accountable to saying, hey, are we doing this for the right reasons? Are you making decisions that are going to benefit me and my kids? Yeah. And I think in addition to that, being a big brother, I feel like there's a special calling on this generation for youth and adults to begin to come together in more authentic partnership. In the wisdom literature, it says, in those days, the hearts of the fathers and the mothers will be turned to the sons and daughters, and the hearts of the sons and daughters will be turned to the mothers and fathers. Otherwise, I'm going to strike the land with a curse. And I think that there's a lot of different challenges that are going on with education, with immigration, with employment, incarceration. And I think a lot of these problems can be resolved if we can bring the wisdom and the experiences of the elders and the creativity and the energy of the youth together.
Talking about youth, what's the most surprising as you serve the youth? What has been the results? What's been as you deliver the message?
Yeah, so, this whole context and question brings me to a particular idea and memory of when we were working in LA. So in a city called Wilmington, which is near Compton, which is in the, Spa 8 area of LA, we were contracted to work with parents and also with youth. And there was a lot of violence going on in the community and, folks getting shot like every day. And so coming there, I was like, man, this is a unique situation. But I could see that the parents and the youth wanted to make a difference. Part of the problem was that they didn't work together and they didn't really like each other. So the parents, coming from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, saw kids who were into skateboarding and graffiti and, back in those days they had MySpace, and they're like, I don't know, and this hip hop, and so they would always say, turn off that stupid music, right? And the kids would tell the parents like, oh, well, you guys are from the old country, like you don't know what it's like to be in inner city LA, you know, like you guys are obsolete. And so a big part of our work was getting the parents to realize, okay, yeah, you're into, you know, ranchero music and this kind of, that's got the blues in it. You know, and let's go through some lyrics. And they're like, oh, yeah, you know, we like this music because it's telling stories and we can connect on an emotional level. Well, then I bring out the message. Then I bring out, you know, the roots. And I bring some, and I'm like, let's read through these lyrics. That's the blues too. And then it's like the scales fell off the eyes of the parents and they realized, well, not all this music is bad. And then with the youth, we said, well, look, your parents have made a lot of sacrifices for you to have a better life. You know, let's try to sample from their example and their bravery and their courage. Some of them, you know, putting their lives on the line for you to be here. Let's learn from that. Let's honor that. And let's remix it into our lives. And so as we began to, you know, take these folks through these processes and workshops, we brought them together for a chapter that we call Pimp My Ride, which is a whole metaphor that we use, right? If you're familiar with the TV show. Yeah. So, you know, but instead of a hoopty car, you know, do we have experiences that have hurt us, that, you know, we have junk in our trunk that we need to clean out. And so we take folks.
And that's, underline that. Yeah, we got to just, in order to nourish anyone.
Yes.
We got to nourish ourselves first, balance
That's right.
ourselves. And that's what it is.
That's right. And so, you know, getting them to write letters of forgiveness to each other.
That's powerful.
For having this divide generationally. And as they began to share these letters, asking one another for forgiveness for this wall that had been up, you know, that wall started to crumble down. It was one of the most powerful workshops in my life. It wasn't a dry eye in the room. But even more importantly, they decided to work together for a community-wide event that they wanted to name the Hip Hop Revival. And so during the day, they did activities with children and face paintings and puppet shows and music. And at night, you know, in LA, they like to crump. That's the kind of dance. They got crumping, and we did an MC battle and everything. And because this was led by the parents and the youth, Mycah, it brought the whole community together. The Y's and the Boys and Girls Clubs and the district.
It's building relationships.
They were able to, make that unity of relationships that one executive director couldn't do on his or her own, or one board member couldn't do on their own. This was the people. Everyone showed up, even the gang leaders. So here are guys tatted up, you know, look like they were born in prison, lifting weights for, you know, these guys are huge, and they're walking with their little 2- and 3-year-old kids who are so excited to be outside, you know. And the crazy thing, Mycah, is the kids start playing with each other. And one of the organizers said, man, we got to go talk to these gang leaders. So we talked to the gang leaders. We said, what do you think about the event? Oh, man, the event is beautiful. My son Tony's running around. What do you think? Should we do more events like that? Oh, yeah, y'all need to do this every month. We said, well, how would you be willing to help? Well, you know,
partnership.
The issue is the gang violence, and we need a peace rally. I'm just, you know, one organizer from one organization, right? And so he said, but I'd be willing to do what I can do. So all the gang leaders said the same thing. Man, we brought them together during the event. Their kids were playing. We said, look at your kids. And we said, let's not have a conversation about the past. Let's have a conversation about the future and what kind of community do you want these kids to inherit? And Mycah, based on that prompt, man, these guys started to talk to each other. They even started to laugh a little bit. And they said, you know, we have a long way to go. But this is huge. We want to get up on that stage and let everybody know what happened. So by now.
What would you say to parents? I mean, we talked about relationships.
Yeah.
Because it's about relationships.
Right.
Got to know that environment. Got to mold yourself. I can't go with a tux or a suit to that environment. I have to take out myself and get to that level.
I don't know. That is a pretty nice blazer, though. You can go into a lot of environments with that one. I was just saying.
Here's my brother. Come and get it. You know? But whatever it takes, doesn't it? Whatever it takes in our community to get to that level. I believe when you reach a community, not the ego is out the window. So if you're running for office or anything, that goes out the window because your relationships, building relationship with the community. And if you have here because you want to be somebody, it's not going to work. It's because of your own political agenda, whatever it might be. But if you want to be someone and empower somebody, that just makes a difference. What would you say for parental involvement today, to this audience, to the viewers? Your own opinion about parental involvement in schools.
You know, I think Manny hit a lot of great points. You know, just a couple things that I would add to that would be that, you know, the research tells us that once kids get to a certain age, that they're trying to seek autonomy and separate themselves a little bit from their parents. They're trying to figure out who they are. And this is that stage of development where they're formulating their identities. Mm-hmm. They're figuring out what their purpose is in life. They're trying to figure out, okay, I got all this pain. What do I do with this? And the research says that if an adult other than a parent can come in the picture, that it can have a profound impact in a young person's life, right? It might just be that even they sit on a bench and say a few words, but it speaks to the core and the soul of that young person. And so at a certain point, we can only take our kids so far.
Right.
And we need other people who can come and hit that RBI and bring them home.
It's building
we don't want to leave
village.
anybody on the base.
Yeah.
You can bring them to third base, but without the RBI, you're not going to win the World Series, right?
Yeah.
And so even though parents can do a lot in the formative years, and Manny really, you know, hit that very well, you know, looking at adolescence, we as parents need to be mothers and fathers for kids who are not even our own.
That's
in,
right.
in hopes,
good, right?
yeah. Because reciprocally, that other father and mother has a position of authority to speak into the life of our children in a way that we don't have. And if we do that for one another, then we start to create what I call communitas, right? A community of people who goes on a journey to change the world.
That's what we need more. Before we start wrapping up, we have less than a minute. Very briefly, what inspired you to name the Good Life organization?
Yeah, so I went to 13 different schools before high school. When I got kicked out, no other school would accept me. That summer, you know, after going through drug rehab and everything, I started playing baseball. I'm named after Roberto Clemente. My father being from Nicaragua, they love Roberto Clemente. So I was playing baseball that summer, and a scout from a local high school said, we want to recruit you to our team and to our school. It was a private school. And so I ended up going to this private Catholic school on a baseball scholarship. But the thing about it was everybody in the school had money. Whereas, you know, growing up in Galveston, Texas, you know, we didn't have insulated walls. You know, our heat was the oven and a little gas, you know, heater. I went to sleep wearing a coat and an electric blanket, you know. So going to school, I felt like I was the bummy guy, you know. I'd have people drop me off at school or after, you know, practice, and I'd have them drop me off at, you know, down the block because I was embarrassed where we live. But when I graduated from high school, my father, who was in the import-export business of automobiles, said, I'll give you a job driving a truck to Nicaragua. So we went through Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and I remember going through Guatemala City, you know, packed with people and donkeys in the street and kids selling chicle at the window, ting, 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 right? And we went outside of the city, and I saw the city dump. And it was huge, all the trash from the city. But then I realized there are people who lived in the trash. I could see like little homes that folks had created and kids, you know, they're cooking food and going through the trash. And it totally impacted my whole way of seeing the world, Mycah, because I realized like,
And that would be it got you created too.
we had so much. I came back to that shack that I lived in, and I said, we got running water, we have electricity. Man, I'm living the good life.
That's a good. I want to thank Roberto Rivera for being here. Everyone gets free books from Book Spring today. And for being in our show, the Eagle Talk show, we want to give you this because after all, parents, padres, you are the driver of your child's bus. We'll see you on the next show. Roberto, muchas gracias, brother.
Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.